Welcome to This Side of 50 with your host, me, Milton K. Smith. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thank you all for tuning in once again, subscribing. This is Milton, Pastor Milton, with This Side of 50. I am so grateful and so happy that you've taken time out of your day to download and subscribe to this podcast. Listen, if you would like, you can send me your comments, your thoughts about the podcast, what we do well, what we need to improve on. You can send that email to mks@miltonksmith.org, mks@miltonksmith.org. Tell me what I can do to improve. Tell me what topics you'd like to hear me discuss or hear my opinion on. So thank you so much once again that you've taken time out to subscribe to this podcast. Listen to it as you're driving into work or driving home or just throughout your day, that you think enough of what I have to say to want to listen to it. I'm always amazed at the numbers as they get better each week with unique listeners and downloads of the different episodes. So we're into season 2, and we're going to get started for a few moments. I'll talk with you. I'm always trying to keep abreast of what's going on in the culture. As you know, we talk about spirituality and culture for the most part on this podcast. So I try to stay abreast. And a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, I came across this term that intrigued me. I began to research it and everything. If you're a part of our Facebook E-Connect group, part of my church, those who are listening, you may not be aware of that I am a pastor. I pastor Empowering Grace Christian Center on 401 Porter Street here in San Antonio, Texas. So we have a Facebook page there, E-Connect group, and every so often I'll discuss or mention topics that I think are trending just to get opinions from the culture, from the generation as to their take on it, their views, how they feel about it. So this term came up, polyamory or polyamorous. Some of you are probably familiar with that. Some of you may not be. And I began to research it a little bit. I'm going to read here the definition from Wikipedia. You know, Wikipedia is always right. It says here that polyamory, if I'm saying that right, polyamory is the practice or desire for intimate relationships with one or with more than one partner with the informed consent of all partners involved. People who identify as polyamorous may believe in open relationships with a conscious management of jealousy and reject the view that sexual and relational exclusivity, I'm probably saying that word all the way wrong, right? Exclusivity are necessary for deep, committed, long-term, loving relationships. I'm going to use the word relational exclusiveness. How's that? Because I am not pronouncing that word right. With loving relationships. Others prefer to restrict their sexual activity to only members of the group, or close polyamorous relationship, which is usually referred to as polyfidelity. So that's a definition there. As I stumbled over that one big word that I apparently can't use, I can't say well. But anyway, came across that, was very taken back, or I could say just very shocked that there's even such a group or such a rise of such activity, I would say, in the world, in this country. And this is not in negativity. So when I say that, coming from my generation, being a child of the 70s and 80s, and of course with my Christian background, some things that I see happening now always challenge me as to how far we've come, be it good or bad. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, to each his own, as we say. So I'm in no ways passing judgment, but I will say that I'm often shocked by certain things. So this is one of those things that shocked me. Now, from the biblical standpoint, we would call this fornication. We would call this a whole bunch of things, right? Adultery, whatever words you want to throw out there. We would label this as sin. from the Christian perspective. We're not going to discuss that on today. I am just interested in the fact that we live in a culture, in a world where having more than one intimate partner has become normal, has become something that's trending, something that's on the rise, something that's popular. So, like I said, I'll begin to research that just to find out what's going on, what's going on. So I'm going to say, first of all, I think now when we start talking about dating and relationships, that you have to ask more than just the basic questions. What's your name? What do you like to eat? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite color? I think now we got to also ask, what's your relationship preference? Do you prefer a polyamorous relationship or open relationship? Or I think in my day we called them swingers. I think that's still a term that's out there. I think in reading and researching, I found out that there's apparently a difference between polyamorous and swingers. I found there's a difference in non-monogamous relationships. I'm learning these are all different terms, different categories. And you have to ask that question, hey, what's your definition of relationship? So that you will know from the start of the relationship what the expectations are and where things are going. So in researching this, and I have the screen pulled up in front of me here because I'm actually reading it again as I'm talking to you. It says here, and it seems like now about 1/5 as of 2019. Says over 1/5 of the United States population has at some point in their lives engaged in some sort of consensual non-monogamy. Right? So that's number one. So what? 3 years ago, and I'm probably certain that it's a lot more now. We have 1/5 of what people are saying, or in relationships where they have agreed or they're okay with their partner being intimate, both physically and emotionally, with someone else. That's interesting to me. And I'm wondering how, and I'm reading, of course I'm reading it that they say it works out well. I'm challenged as how can you be, I guess, as open, as intimate with more than one person or with a different person as you are with another person. I'm probably saying that wrong. When I look at relationships, especially when we talk about being intimate and being in a consensual relationship, that person becomes your confidant. That person is your right hand. That's your best friend. And you divulge information to them that you wouldn't normally say to other people. They know things about you. They know your deep, dark secrets, so to speak. They know your likes, your dislikes, your fears, all those kind of things. And usually you reserve that for just one person because if you're like me, you don't want too many people knowing the deep, dark crevices about you because that can be, to me, dangerous. People could use that against you emotionally, use that to manipulate you and control you. So you're very guarded when it comes to expressing those intimate things about yourself to even the person that you're in a long-term relationship with, consensual, monogamous relationship to. So that's the first thing that shocked me. Is like, wow, that they're able to be open and share those fears, share those vulnerabilities with more than one person, and it seems to be okay, right? So it says here, I'm reading, it says here, many things to differentiate polyamory from other types of non-monogamous relationships. It is common for swinging and open couples to maintain emotional monogamy while engaging in extra-diadic sexual relations. Similarly, the friend-partner boundary in monogamous relationships and other forms of non-monogamy is typically fairly clear. Unlike other forms of non-monogamy, though, polyamory is notable for privileging emotional intimacy with others. Benefits include the ability of individuals to discuss issues with multiple partners, potentially mediating and thus stabilizing a relationship and reducing polarization of viewpoints, and emotional support and structure from other committed adults within the familial unit. Wow. So it seemed to me, and I know how I am, you ought to tell me, it looks like, and I think it's an amazing thing that people can be in a relationship and be equal in all aspects of their relationship. Say two men and a young lady, or two ladies and a young man, and they have no jealousy between them as to feeling slighted one by the other. I think, to me, that comes to bear the questions: how much do you care about your own emotions and your own self, that you're okay with knowing that what you have is not completely all yours. And when I say all yours, not that you own or possess any person, or that you have the right to say that another person is your property, but that also, I think you have to understand that when you're in a marriage or in a monogamous relationship, you feel like that person is attached to you. And although you may not own them, you feel attached to them, and that is a piece of you, your heartbeat, your right hand, your flesh of one flesh, bone of one bone, all those great things we say, especially in marriage. But in the dating scene, you're trying to develop that oneness and that closeness with that person. And now we see here that we're saying that it's possible if you all share a heart. We have one heart. You know how you used to have those hearts growing up, and you give the other person half and you have half. Now I guess you have to do that three ways, right? If one person has a third and the other person has a third and you have a third. But I can understand, mediating, thus stabilizing a relationship. You have another person to bounce those things off of. But for me, there would be a level of jealousy because I just wouldn't want to share. Maybe I'm overly possessive, and maybe that's something I have to work on. I think a lot of people listening to me, some of those listening to me, feel the same way. Hey, you don't like sharing. You don't like sharing, especially when it comes to something of that nature. I was pledging years ago in a fraternity, and I wasn't aware of all the ins and outs of fraternities and the things they do. I didn't know what the sweethearts were and all that. I was kind of oblivious to that. So I was pledging to this fraternity, and I was dating a young lady, or called myself dating a young lady. And we had an incident where I came to realize that she was also with another person in the fraternity, one of the, I guess you would call them the heads of the fraternity, or whatever the case may be. And I confronted her about that, and she was open and said, yes, blah, 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 this is what I'm doing. And I realized at that point in time for me that I'll share my car, I'll share my money, but I wasn't into sharing my significant other. So from that point on, I had a bad taste in my mouth about fraternities, and I actually never pledged. Stopped, ended that pledge on my journey with that fraternity, and from that point on didn't pledge again because I've always held the mindset that I can't share that. Now, at the same time, I've been in some other relationships where I've cheated. I think some of you out there can understand where I'm coming from. And it seems like I have a double standard. And at that time, apparently I did, because I was okay being the one cheating, but I wasn't okay with being the one that was cheated on. So laugh if you must, but I think a lot of you have been in that situation. That was my hand clap in the back, right? So that being the case, when I look at this polyamory or this polyamorous situation or this category, I understand how I would not be able to fit into that. How would you fit into that? I think if I was into that, I'd probably be okay. No, I wouldn't be okay at all, because at the end of the day, it seems like three people are being cheated on. If I don't like what you're saying that day, I'll just go over to my other partner, see what they're saying. So I may spend more time with them than with you, because right now you're tripping. That would just boggle and baffle me, and I would say even anger me and disappoint me, and actually would lower my self-esteem, especially when it comes to the intimacy part. Yeah. What if one person was better than the other one? Then, I would have a lot of issues. But see here, reducing polarization of viewpoints and emotional support and structure from other committed adults. I can understand that. Other benefits include a wide range of adult experience, skills, resources, and perspectives, and support for companionate marriages, which can be satisfying even if no longer sexually vital, since romantic needs are met elsewhere. And I'm just reading from Wikipedia here, right? I've read it before. I just want to read it again while we're here. So that goes back to what I was saying, right? That would be a problem for me, realizing that if you weren't happy with my romance skills, that you can go somewhere else and be happy, and then we're going to come back and be friends. Nah, I don't think so. Not. That's what I would say. Got some Crystal Light. Felt something in my throat right there, even thinking about it. Got to get that out. Yeah, that'll be a knot. There'll be a knot. If you ever leave and go, and you tell me you're going over there because you feel more connected to them tonight, I probably would say stay over there, right? Stay over there. That's just me. This is why when I heard about this topic in this category, it just amazed me. I laughed, and I'm still laughing. Not. So let's see. It says here, a final benefit is more emotional, intellectual, and sexual needs met as part of the understanding that one person cannot be expected to provide them all. Isn't that the sole purpose of marriage, though? And the sole purpose of being in a monogamous relationship is finding someone that satisfies you, that has the complete package for you, knowing that we all are growing and we all evolve and we all develop as we get older, as we get more experience, wisdom, knowledge. Isn't that part of the unity of marriage and the unity of monogamous couples, that we're growing together and we become what each other needs? It seems here that we're saying we've already come to a conclusion in a polyamorous situation that no one person can do it. So I got to find two people, maybe even 3 or 4 people, I don't know, to satisfy my needs. That's just interesting. And once again, I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just voicing my opinion, the questions that would come to my mind if I was confronted with this as an option in a relationship. Now, here's a question. If your partner, and I'm assuming that you're not in a polyamorous situation, if you are, you can definitely write in and tell me how it works for you. But for those who may not be, they're in a traditional monogamous relationship, what would you say when your partner comes in and says, hey, I would like to have an open relationship in the sense of I want us to explore being polyamorous, and they give you the reasons why? Would you be okay with that? How would that make you feel? Would you say no? Would you say okay? Would you say I think about it? Would you try to understand what they're saying and why they feel a need to go in that direction? I think that's interesting. What would you do? What would you do? That's write in if you want to. mks@miltonksmith.org. I would love to hear your responses to that and see how you would feel. So it also says here that being polyamorous offers release from the monogamous expectation that one person must meet all of an individual's needs. They have here sex, emotional support, primary friendship, intellectual stimulation, companionship, and social presentation. So, yeah, it takes that responsibility off that one person. But once again, I guess growing up like I am, like I have, I think that's part of being in a monogamous relationship. The challenge of trying or becoming what your partner needs and growing and seeing that maturity in yourself, and not just saying, oh, well, I can't do that. Oh, well, that's not me. Find someone else from that. Blah, 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 yada, 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 right? Once again, I don't know how I would have reacted had my significant other anytime asked if we could have a consensual agreement to have another person in our relationship on a regular long-term basis. Now, I understand a lot of you out there, we were young. Some of you are still young and you've done some crazy things and you've done some wild things, but we're not talking about those one-offs. We're talking about this as a regular, normal way of relationship lifestyle, a normal relationship culture, whereas you have more than one intimate partner and your other partner, once again, is okay with that. Isn't that something? You don't have to hide your phone. You don't have to delete your text messages. You don't have to, disguise yourself with dark windows and go out of town. They know about it. Whatever the case may be. So think about that. I got a little line here I'm reading. It says, for those who are polyamorous, social distancing as a result of COVID-19 created ripples in existing relationships, leading some to split apart and others to struggle to maintain the connections with one another. I could see how that could be, especially if you're quarantined. And now, yeah, I guess now we found out how much someone really loves you, right? Because now we, as you know, that challenge that, hey, either you're gonna be over here or over there, right? Over here, over there. Can't be both places when we have COVID out. So that's something that I find interesting, that it caused a rip or a ripple in a relationship. And I think that's because there's no commitment. And when there's no commitment, no real commitment, then it's easy to walk away, because I don't know if you really can love someone fully knowing that they're saying they love you and someone else with the same degree. I often have said in a lot of my teaching at the church is that everybody cannot be a priority. Everything cannot be a priority. There only can be one priority, and then there has to be a number 2 or 1A or 1B or 1C. But everybody can't be number one, numero uno. Everybody can't, because if so, then you're going to be torn. So you got to make the distinction, right? Here's something as I'm reading this. We'll talk about it here. Non-possessiveness. Now, so I said that earlier, right? That I think one of the challenges, and I can understand from this perspective why people would lean towards being in a polyamorous relationship as opposed to a traditional monogamous relationship, is the idea of possessiveness, right? Some polyamorous view excessive restrictions on other deep relationships as less than desirable, and such restrictions can be used to replace trust with a framework of ownership and control. So it's usually preferred to encourage that a polyamorous strive to view their partner's other significant others, often referred to as metamors or OSOs, in terms of the gain to their partner's lives rather than a threat to their own. Isn't that something? So it says here they use that term compersion. Compersion is empathetic state of happiness and joy experienced when another individual experiences happiness and joy. So in other words, they don't see it as a threat. They see it as, oh, I'm happy that you're able to find what you need in the other person that you couldn't find in me. Once again, I can applaud the open-mindedness that I believe this requires to be in this relationship, and the trust, if there is such a thing. I don't know if there's much trust involved, although we want to use the word trust. I can definitely, from a wide perspective, see the attractability of such a thing. But once again, for me, it goes right back to, isn't that the whole purpose of monogamy and being with one person? Is being able to supply what they need and working in the areas, soaring with your strengths and managing your weaknesses, knowing that we're all growing together and I'm not going to be perfect. Maybe what we're seeing here is the desire to have it all. There's an episode of Scandal. I want to say maybe one of the final episodes in the season 8, I think it is, when Papa Pope says to Olivia, no one can have it all. And maybe we're seeing here the desire in relationships to have it all. They want it all. And rather than be dedicated to one and maybe accept the fact that you may not be able to have everything you want, I'd rather stretch those boundaries of marriage, stretch those boundaries of relationship or monogamy, and have what I want to satisfy what I need. So anyway, I just thought it was a great topic. I would like to hear your thoughts on that. Your thoughts on what you see as being attractive about being a polyamorist or a polyamoristic relationship, and also what you see as a difficulty. Here's something, and I'll close with this last thought here. Polyamorous relationships present practical pitfalls. One common complaint from participants is time management. Yeah, how do you divide your time between the two? How do you feel? How would you feel if more time is being spent with the other person than with you? Are you okay with that? Could you work through that? Is that part of the understanding that, hey, I may be slighted sometime. You may not be with me when I need you to be there, but that's okay. And if that's the point, then am I allowed to go get someone else? So now it goes from being 3 to 4, so that when you're not there, I can find someone else. It just seems like you open up a can of worms, the proverbial Pandora's box in this relationship, or this type of relationship. But to each his own, to each his own. And if it works for you, then I applaud you. No judgment. This is not what we do here. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own viewpoints. I just want to highlight it, give you my views, my thoughts about it over a few minutes here that we've talked. Hopefully, you've enjoyed it. Now, listen, you can email me at mks@miltonksmith.org. Give me your comments, your views, your opinions, your criticisms. I'll listen to it all. Be respectful, though. Now, I'm going to get off this podcast for today. You're going to hear that outro in a few seconds. Be safe, stay safe, and I will talk to you next time. This has been This Side of 50. That's what that outro is going to say. With me, Milton. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye. You have been listening to This Side of 50 with Milton K. Smith. Email me your comments, your questions, your thoughts. mks@miltonksmith.org. I look forward to hearing from you. I'll talk with you next time.